Hi, this is Charles Wiley with Columbia Theological Seminary, and I'm here today with Mitzi Smith, who is the J. Davidson Phillips Professor of New Testament. How are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good, Charles. Thank you so much for this invitation.
We're about 12 miles apart, but as with all communication these days, it's done electronically. So you're a scholar of New Testament. As you think about the New Testament, about theology, what kind of things, reflections or insights come to mind as we're facing this COVID-19 pandemic?
Yes, despite the privilege, and I'm probably living in more privilege at the moment being here at CTS than I've ever have in my life. I've never lived in a place where I didn't have to pay rent or mortgage.
There you go.
That is a luxury. I mean,
Right.
people are being evicted
Right.
despite the public rhetoric. So I think a lot about in the deaths. I know people want to focus on who's not dying, but families who are experiencing death, they
Right.
don't have that privilege. So I've been thinking a lot about lament and how do we have hope in the while we lament, and the issue of theodicy. Where is God? And we are often encouraged as individuals to focus on our individual blessings, right?
Right.
But that just to me seems, yes, we should be thankful, right? Regardless. But when we focus on the privileges we have and they become the focus of our blessing and praise, it seems that that becomes like a dead-end street, right? So how do we then say, okay, I have this privilege and I'm thankful for it, but I know a lot of people don't. So what does that thankfulness lead me to do, right?
Right.
To do whatever I can to help in this situation. We can't go far, but we can donate, right?
Right.
We can check on people.
Right.
Even what comes out of our mouths can be damaging, right? So how do we think and talk about this differently?
Right. Yeah, I've thought a lot about how different this experience is depending on your context. For someone like
Mhm,
me who can work from home and can
mhm,
live fairly comfortably, that's a very different experience from either workers who've lost their jobs or having difficulty, as you said, with housing, or smaller business owners who see things just sort
mhm,
of evaporating before them. Are there any
mhm.
particular texts in the New or Old Testaments that come to mind for you that are helpful?
Charles, I'm teaching online two classes: New Testament interpretation and First Corinthians.
Oh,
And and so we try to get the students to because this thing cannot not be on our minds, right?
right, right,
We're
right,
living it. So how do we get students to reflect? Because truth telling, reflection can be healing, can be helpful, right?
right,
I think a lot of us are going to need counseling, and some of us may not even realize how much. A nurse the other day committed suicide, right?
right,
And those are the stories we know. So how do we get students to reflect in ways that hopefully can be helpful? And so we've been reading uh, uh, we're in our last week, but last week reading the pastoral, the Catholic epistles, particularly First, Second, Third John, and First Peter, and thinking about First Corinthians, which is my other course, right? And a thing that all of these texts mention is love, right? And at
uh-huh,
a certain space, loving. How do we love? Um, but there's also problems with the epistles because we have people trying to construct community in a new situation, just like we are.
Right.
But what can happen is this communities can be constructed in very exclusive ways, so that love becomes like we see in First John, in the Johannine community, in the later developments in the epistles. We see this type of love that is exclusively for those who think like us, who look like us, right? And so where do we see this happening in terms of immigrants, in terms of class, and so forth in this present environment? I had a student for the first time. I never knew it, in the classroom. She never shared this, but had the opportunity to share. And yes, I'm afraid because I'm a citizen, but my husband is not. He has a green card, and
Right.
they're afraid. And so, yeah, so how do we think differently about love and loving in very particular ways? We're taught to love in very broad ways, right? In such a way that we can't um, love people as we love abstractly. Let me put it that way, right?
Right.
Facebook, I have a lot of friends and we have some commonalities, right? But then when I maybe meet some of these friends for the first time, it's not that same
Right.
thing. So, because there's this broad community, but then how do you love me when you meet me? How do you
Right.
love very particular ways, right? I shared a talk by Howard Thurman in one of our classes online about we have to learn to love in very particular ways. Right.
Right.
Yeah. So, and this is something we continually have to work out. And how do we work it out and hopefully come out of this pandemic and having learning to love in very particular ways and ways that move us beyond these abstract notions of love.
Yeah, I've always found it easier to love the church in the abstract than particular
Yes, yes,
congregations. It's like, oh yeah, the
yes.
church is really important.
Hmm.
My
Hmm.
congregation, not so much.
Yeah.
um, the yeah, well, anyway, that's been one of the great spiritual challenges for me as an adult, is to love the concrete church that I'm actually in, rather than an abstract idea of the church. Um,
Yes.
so I wonder how the church is going. One of the things I've noticed, like my congregation, we were going to take part in an Atlanta food bank food giveaway a couple of weeks ago with all necessary precautions, but the discussion around it was, could we even pull this off? And I wonder about
Hmm.
congregations with their normal notions of what mission is, can't really do anything like that right now and won't be able to for a while. I don't know. What do you think? What do you think? Are sort of the theological challenges of that?
Yes. Yeah, I'm struggling through this myself. So I was trying to, before this, make connections with local organizations doing homeless ministries, right?
Uh huh.
Very hopefully non-traditional, or at least holistically. And Crossroads Ministries, which is run by the Episcopal Church, and they have on Cortland, I think, Street in downtown Atlanta. Um, and I went down there a couple of times, and I was so struck by how holistic it is. But anyway, so they continue to feed during this pandemic, but they've adjusted to preparing sack lunches, sack
Oh, right.
meals, right? And yeah, so I continue to support them. I can't support them, at least I don't feel comfortable yet supporting them at this time in person, but sending donations so they can continue to do. But think about it. There are people there who have to pass out these lunches, right?
Yep.
I'm assuming that they do have, and that's an assumption that they do have coverings for their mouths and gloves,
Right,
right? But
right,
and they're continuing other services as well, but they're taking a risk that many Christians are not prepared to take,
right,
right? Um, we talk about how Jesus took risks, right? And we like to use this language of taking up our crosses, but we are not, and we praise those who do, and maybe like the healthcare workers and others who may not even be Christians, right? But are risking their lives, and we could not exist. We could not have the privileges we have without that, with that type of risk. So why is it that we, as Christians that have all of this rhetoric, don't take those risks, right? Now, I'm not
right.
talking about I'm not talking about the kind of risk that, okay, so I want to go out and eat or I want to go to party, right? But I'm
Right.
talking about to help
Yeah.
those who don't have a choice but to live um, in a way that every day is a risk,
Right.
right?
Right. Yeah. I was thinking when our church was going through this conversation that we've we've restricted a lot of our activities pretty strongly for safety. And uh, I remember thinking, well, if one is going to catch the virus and suffer from it, this seems like the right way to catch it. So,
Mhm.
uh, but it turned out Atlanta Food Bank couldn't get there and we had to cancel it. But I think that's
Mhm.
one of the things that churches and individual Christians are really struggle with is how to continue the mission when the traditional means by which they've done that are not available, or at least difficult or dangerous.
Right, we have to become more creative. And love is, I think love is vulnerable. We take
Right,
risks for our
right,
children, but we're not going to take risks. And that goes back to this abstract notion of love. We're not going to take risks for somebody, talking about the particular, right? For
right,
somebody
right,
who's not a part of our family. But we take risks, right? For
right,
those
right.
we love in particular.
Right. I think that's a really helpful reminder that right now, when so many things in our life are abstracted because we're disconnected from one another, that the command to love is so concrete. And so the church must figure out ways to love concretely, even in a time like this.
Mhm.
Is there anything else you want to mention before we cut off?
Let me just say what I've noticed uh, among, in terms of teaching online, right?
Yeah, sure.
That of course there are some students who are impacted in ways that others are not. And I don't want to minimize anybody's trauma, right?
Right, right.
But at the same time, there are students who had hurdles. For example, some international students who had hurdles to jump over that are exasperated, right? Exacerbated, right? In this pandemic, there are women who may be impacted differently if they were the sole caregivers of their children, right? And the children
Wow,
are at
right, right.
home, right? And some husbands will continue to feel like that's not their jobs, unfortunately, right?
I understand.
That they're pulling their hair out. I shared a video from, I think a woman was in Paris with students online, and the woman's going on and on, said, "You're checking, I got 3 kids and I'm supposed to be a math expert now. And you're talking about practice music. I don't know music." And she says, "You're calling asking how they're doing. Ask how I'm doing."
Yes.
So, it just reminds me in education has become so elitist. Even seminary education is that I have to learn and continue to be challenged to teach not to the most privileged, right?
Right.
Not for the most privileged and hope that it trickles down, right? To somehow uh, teach as effectively as I can with the most vulnerable in mind, right?
Yeah, well, that's really helpful. It's interesting to me how educational institutions have been moving in quickly or more slowly into online education, and then 6 weeks ago, everybody moved really fast, no matter
Hmm.
no matter what they were up to. And I know that's been a
Definitely.
challenge for you as, I mean, not you in particular, but I know that for all faculty, that's been a challenge.
Yes, and for me in particular.
Oh,
I mean, I didn't realize how much it impacted me. I was walking around, I couldn't identify it, but I didn't want to, I went through the motions of doing what I had to do, but there was a depression there, right? Maybe
right.
brought on also by the isolation and by the deaths and the reality of it all, and family members who, in Ohio, maybe not taking it seriously, right? Those burdens. And so it took me a while. I've taught maybe over the years 8 classes online, right? But there's some who have not at all, and they're stressed, right? So so that's even a greater burden for them. Um, but it kind of didn't hit me, and I didn't really feel like even being creative maybe till 2 weeks ago.
Uh-huh.
You know.
Well, I know I've done a few online classes teaching, and it's a really different way of thinking, and it's a different, I often, um, um, I rely on visual cues from people that you don't always get when you're teaching online, and
Hmm.
it's just a different experience. Well, I want to
Hmm.
thank you so much for taking time to talk to us today about your insights into what's going on. Dr. Mitzi Smith, I got to get this right again, the J. Davidson Phillips Professor of New Testament at Columbia Seminary. It's been fun talking to you, and I can't
You
wait to
too,
see you in person.
Charles.
I'll see you
Thank
in
you.
person
Thank you.
someday.
Yes, take care.